of shame for our nation, humiliating for African and African American people. Haiti was our ally in the Revolutionary War. Every baseball Babe Ruth ever hit was made in Haiti. It's been an ally from the very beginning of our country. As for Africa, America's original wealth came from Africa, the trading industry, trading people, 243 years of labor without wages and resources. Every Firestone tire came from plantation of Liberia, the gold from Ghana, uranium and diamonds from the Congo. Africa has been good too and good for America, and so it is a source of this white male supremacist nationalism does not fit well with a country so global as ours.
What is this? There have been concerns about President Trump either being a racist or certainly having a history of making racially insensitive comments. What does this tell you about?
Well, there's an unacceptable pattern. The pattern that President Barack Obama was not born in America, was not true, of course. The Fire Boys in Central Park in New York tried to condemn them without trial and without justification, equating the civil rights marches with neo-Nazis in Charlottesville. It's been a pattern. We as a nation deserve better. We're going to talk about it more tomorrow at the Rainbow Push meeting. But we really, today is the 8th anniversary of the massive earthquake in Haiti. The 89th birthday for Dr. King come this Monday. And yet it's interesting that we a combination of hope and hopelessness, because to some extent, while we have these forces trying to undercut our progress, I think about the Alabama-Georgia game last Monday night. Alabama's kind of symbolized by George Wallace blocking the door. In Georgia, Lester Maddox with the axe handle threatening black people. Yet our children on the ball field at prime time. So we're going forward by hope. We're not going backwards by fear. We're not going to submit to racial slander. We are a better nation than that.
What's more disheartening for you, the fact that he said it, or the fact that apparently a lot of his base likes what they heard?
What's most disheartening is that he has power. If a white person who is without power calls you a nasty name, he has a problem. If he has power, then you have a problem. With that power, he can reduce access to voting and children's health insurance and health care and education. He has these positions, and he's the most powerful man in America with a following within the Congress and within the constituency, which makes him a real threat to progress.
Does he owe an apology to those he said this to?
More than an apology, he owes a change in direction. He is deregulating justice, deregulating the climate change as hurricanes become more fierce, deregulating Planned Parenthood for women. His policies are commensurate with his language.
Do you think he's a racist?
His every sign is that. He speaks like a racist. He conjures up those fears. But categorize him by a name does not quite address the issue. His beliefs about calling Africa a shithole and Haiti, our ally in the Revolutionary War, Haiti, a source of agriculture for America, Haiti, rice production, Haiti. Every Firestone tire down in America came from Liberia, Africa, a coffee from and gold from Ghana, Haiti, Africa. And so a misinformed man with power is a weapon of mass destruction.
Thank you, Robert.
Reverend Jackson.
What's going on, sir?
Well, he was.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Everybody ready? Ready.
So your reaction?
Comments to the president's comments.
No, I'd like to say that I'm surprised, but we've heard various comments from this president over the course of the last several years, some that he immediately afterwards denied. He has no credibility anymore to deny these type of divisive racist statements, and there's no need to tiptoe around what they are. They're racist, they're vile, they're divisive, and they're the last thing we need in this country right now. This is a day that we celebrate a man who sought to bring people together, sought to make sure that the least of these in this country were provided for and protected. This is also a day that we mark the vicious earthquake that hit the homeland of my parents and my ancestors, Haiti. And to refer to Haitians and to Haiti as, I'm not going to tiptoe, a shithole country, is language that's unbecoming of a president. It's language that reflects that we have a president who is unfit and unstable. For him to make the statements at a time when we're trying to negotiate immigration reform, it's not only unwise and unstrategic, it's just reflective of not being stable. And that's the last thing we need in a commander-in-chief right now. And last thing we need is our president. I'm personally offended. There have been those who have called, including my sister on the other side of the aisle, the Congresswoman Mia Love, who have called for an apology. I don't join in a call for apology. You cannot apologize for this. There's no apologizing out of this. It's offensive, and that's the last thing we need. We've heard language from this president demeaning women, promoting neo-Nazis. When is enough enough?
Thank you very much.
She's coming over. I'm not gonna do it.
This is like the red carpet.
Do you need some more?
Much better. Thank you.
Everybody ready? Okay. Hi, Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky of the 9th Congressional District of Illinois. All Americans should be ashamed of what the president has said. And the world is ashamed of what our president has said. It was racist. It was inappropriate, it was crude and loathsome. There are not enough adjectives really to describe how inappropriate the president's remarks were. This country is made so much stronger by our immigrants, by the people who have come here. The people who are here under temporary protective status, many have been here well more than a decade. They have families, they have businesses, and they have made our city and our country stronger. He owes an apology to all of us, particularly the people from the countries that he absolutely insulted in the worst possible way.
Jan, has he ever said anything prior to this that was more offensive to you?
I think he may have reached his limit so far in the kinds of insults, using the absolute crude remarks that he made, showing the utter disrespect for people around the world. It's just incredible. I think people are astonished by it. I haven't heard worse, but it certainly is reflective of his anti-immigrant and I think his racist attitudes.
You know, one minute it seems optimistic that he's willing to sign a bipartisan deal. Now this is giving way of comprehensive deal, a bipartisan deal.
Well, obviously the goal here now is to get a DREAM Act passed as part of the beginning of the year deal. We are still hopeful that we'll be able to get that. Apparently, the president is furious now. He's furious now, which is incredible. And so we're going to have to keep pushing to make sure that we get the DREAM Act. Many of us are also very concerned about the temporary protective status, CPS. We think it should be part of that. But our primary goal now is to pass the DREAM Act, to finally make sure that the 800,000 young people, I met with 4 dreamers from my district just this week, people who have established businesses, who are going to college, and it's these are young people who have contributed ever since their children to this country.
Jan, do you believe that the president's comments, even though he's denied them now, that this could add more support towards getting a DREAM Act passed? So people responding kind of negatively to the president by...
Well, I would like to think that this now puts pressure on the president to show that he is willing to do something meaningful about immigration, for immigrants, for people who have been here in this country. I'm hoping that that will be the direction. This president is so erratic, it's hard to tell. He may be denying it. No one that was in that meeting have I heard deny that those words were spoken. And so I think that they were spoken and that now he needs to act in a constructive way and make sure at the very minimum that we get the DREAM Act passed now. Thank you.
Tony Franklin, next.
So this is the gauntlet today, is that it?
Yeah.
Guys, would you like to raise this up for Brother Franklin?
I'll raise it.
Actually above my head grade.
Go ahead, ma'am. Step up there.
There we go.
Thank you. Good morning.
Hang on 1 second, because the PowerPoint is raised.
All right, good.
Reaction to the comments that the president supposedly made about during the immigration.
Well, I've been profoundly disturbed by President Trump's comments on immigration for a very long time. I recall that during the campaign he described immigrants from Mexico as being rapists and murderers first and foremost, and then said something to the effect that maybe some of them were good people. This is appalling. I don't know how to describe it any other way. Appalling and clearly racist. I mean, he describes countries from which immigrants of color come in very vulgar, profane terms, and then he says we need more immigrants from Norway. So what are we supposed to believe about that? That we need more blue-eyed blonde immigrants and fewer people of color coming into this country? I don't know.
What we see on the Statue of Liberty, bringing your child before your fellow masses.
Well, you know, I'm a history teacher, and there's always been a nativist strain in our country, and fear and hostility toward immigrants. But for much of our history, there has always been a counterbalancing, welcoming strain and a recognition that our country is a great country because of its diversity, not in spite of its diversity. But this president clearly represents the most reprehensible part of our national history, and it's profoundly disturbing to me, as I said. Thank you.
Hi.
Good morning.
How are you?
Yesterday, I reached out to the White House and spoke to President Trump and asked if he would consider the bipartisan compromise which we are offering to save the Dreamers and to help their families. He invited Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina and me to join him in the Oval Office to make that presentation. We went down to the White House at about 12 o'clock. We were surprised to find that in the 2 hours since my first phone call, he had invited in 5 other members of Congress, senators and congressmen, Kevin McCarthy, the Republican leader from California, Congressman Diaz-Balart, Congressman Bob Goodlatte, the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, and Senator David Perdue, all of whom were invited to be part of this. The president came into the Oval Office, and Senator Lindsey Graham and I made our presentation. We have been working for 4 months, 6 senators, 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans, to create a bipartisan way to deal with the crisis we face, where more than 700,000 Dreamers protected by DACA are going to lose that protection starting March 5th of this year by 1,000 a day. As Senator Graham made his presentation, the president interrupted him several times with questions, and in the course of his comments said things which were hate-filled, vile, and racist. I use those words advisedly. I understand how powerful they are, but I cannot believe that in the history of the White House, in that Oval Office, any president has ever spoken the words that I personally heard our president speak yesterday. You've seen the comments in the press. I have not read one of them that's inaccurate. To no surprise, the president started tweeting this morning denying that he used those words. It is not true. He said these hate-filled things, and he said them repeatedly. When the question was raised about Haitians, for example, we have a group that have temporary protected status in the United States because they were the victims of crises and disasters and political upheaval. The largest group's El Salvadoran, the second is Honduran, and the third is Haitian. And when I mentioned that fact to him, he said, Haitians, do we need more Haitians? And then he went on and we started to describe the immigration from Africa that was being protected in this bipartisan measure. That's when he used these vile and vulgar comments, calling the nations they come from shitholes. The exact word used by the president, not just once, but repeatedly. That was the nature of this conversation. When it came to the issue of, quote, chain migration, I said to the president, do you realize how painful that term is to so many people? African Americans believe that they migrated to America in chains. And when you speak about chain migration, it hurts them personally. And he said, oh, that's a good line. And then when I talked to him about the impact this has on family unification, In a nation that values families with the flag as the most important symbols of our future, they scoffed at this notion. It was a heartbreaking moment. But I will tell you this, I'm not going to quit. I have a singular mission, and the mission is this: to give these dreamers and as many members of their families as possible a chance to be part of America's future in a legal status. I am convinced that there's a majority in both the House and the Senate of Democrats and Republicans who support that concept. I know there's an overwhelming majority of Americans who support that concept. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to prepare our bipartisan agreement for introduction into the Senate next week. If the Republican leadership has a better alternative, bring it forward. If they don't, for goodness sakes, give us a vote. I'll be on the phone today with my Republican colleagues and my Democratic colleagues, begging them to support this measure. Time is running out. We have to get this done. My thought that we might get a bipartisan agreement approved by the White House died yesterday. We have to do this and show leadership in Congress to solve this important challenge.
Senator, because of the President's comments yesterday, is there any hope in your mind that this would motivate other members of Congress to support efforts for the Dreamers in response to his racist comments?
Last night, several Republican senators said that they were embarrassed by what the President said, and they wanted to be more visible in their support of our bipartisan effort. I'm hoping that others will join them. I will tell you, I want to add this for the record. My colleague, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, spoke up and made a direct comment on what the President said. I was very proud of him. It took courage for what he did. And I made my own comments in response to it, but for him to confront the President as he did, literally sitting next to him, took extraordinary political courage, and I respect him for it.
What did you say to the President?
Well, I raised several points. I raised the point about chain migration. I raised the point about if you exclude Haitians from this group of temporary protected people, the conclusion is obvious. These are black people. These are folks who bring a different aspect to temporary protected status than those who are from Central American countries. He knew it, and we all knew it.
What's more disheartening for you, the fact that you heard him say it, or the fact that apparently a large portion of his base believes it?
The most disheartening thing to me is my belief that that was the first time words that hateful had been spoken in the Oval Office of the White House. I think back of presidents throughout history, and I cannot imagine a moment where a president sunk to that depth. That's what breaks my heart.
Senator, why not come out of the meeting yesterday, go to the White House press corps, and tell American people what you heard in the Oval Office? Why not play off to the media and then address it today?
Well, I can tell you, as I've said before, and I'll say again, I have a singular mission, and that mission is to pass the DREAM Act and to protect these young people. I spoke to my colleagues, and I will continue to. But my goal is not to get a headline. My goal is not to find publicity or make a splash. My goal is to get that done. And everything that I've done and said before and since is with that goal in mind. Okay, thank you.
There he is.
Stop doing interviews when you get breakfast.
Confirming that yesterday, White House meeting with the President. The President did use the word shit on the press. And the President denied making using such strong language. Senator, you're one now that the not only use shit on countries once, but use it more. He's not the MLK.